Hi guys, Q-Trap here. We're now up to part 3 of my wool trap guide, and in this section we are going to talk about strategies to use as a wool trap. So hopefully you'll find this interesting. But before we go there, since we've gone through in part 2 all the nuts and bolts, let's look at what stats I have when I am in my wool trap gear. So let me change into my wool defensive gear and let's look at the stats. So in terms of the essential stats we should focus on, you can see as a range focused wool trap, my range attack is over 300%, which is very reasonable and effective amount or percentage amount to be able to attack and kill troops efficiently and quickly. The other key focus, of course, is my trap attack percent, which is just under 500 at 486%. Which again, trap attack allows your traps to be more effective in killing the oncoming enemy troops while they are trying to knock down your wall, and at the same time my ranged troops are hitting the incoming troops as well while they're trying to break down the wall. Alongside that, you have the wall defensive boost, which is just under 600% at 475.9%. This is a pretty decent level. Once you hit that 600% defensive boost, it's pretty strong against all types of T4, even against the likes of 700, 800, 1 billion might castles. Around 600% you can do a lot of damage, or it gives you enough time for your wall to stay up for you to damage, put in some damage on those T4 troops that are attacking your castle. So wall defensive boosts 575.9, nearing 600. And of course, as you saw in my last video, there's plenty of room for that to go up in terms of better jewels, better gear, both for wall defensive boost, trap attack, and range attack stats. So that's my war gear and stats you can see. So now let's go to the interesting part, which is what strategies you can employ or use to lure your attacker. And as I mentioned, as a wool trap at the very beginning of this series, being a wool trap has its major advantage because you don't need to use anti if you choose not to. And of course, for me, I never use anti on my wool trap. So by doing that, of course, you're much more likely to be attacked, given that the attacker has a good idea of what you have hiding in your castle. And as I also mentioned at the very beginning, in terms of the advantages of a wool trap, because wool traps are scarce relative to other types of traps out there that they see every day, they don't normally focus on the wall HP that you have on your castle. In fact, as we go into the later part of this discussion, 90%, 99% of the time they will miss the wall HP part of your scout report, and therefore you will be able to deceive them into thinking that either you're offline in farming gear, even in war gear but offline, and your shield expired, for example, but they won't know you are wall trapped until it's too late. And there are some strategies or tactics and tips that I can share with you to make that even less visible to your attacker. So let's take the very basic way to defend, and that's just to say you are randomly set up in some area of the map or in your hive, for example, and what you want to do, if you have troops that you're using as part of your wall trap, remember, as a wall trap, you can be just a pure wall with no troops. You will still get kills because the traps will kill the oncoming enemy troops, as long as your leader's out and they don't break through the wall and cap your leader. Obviously, to be a more effective wall trap, you want to have certain amount of troops to be able to be the secondary attack on the oncoming troops. So as the incoming attackers are trying to break your wall, you have both the traps at killing the opponent as well as the troops that are behind your wall. And for me, because I'm focused and favoring ranged troops, I'm shooting arrows at the incoming troops. And we'll talk about, talk a bit about the setup of my troops and its configuration to maximize and to get as much advantage as you can when you are being attacked by the opponent. So let's just say you're in a hive or you're alone in the middle of the map like I am here, and I have troops. What I do is to firstly shelter as many of the troops as I can without my leader. And there you go. Hide 300,000 troops there. It's a good idea to research and use the familiar that gives you the larger shelter space so you can hide more troops in your shelter. Here I've maxed it out to 300,000 troops, and of course when I unshelter that along with whatever troops I have left, that will give higher attack on the opponent's enemies, on the opponent troops. So first step for me is to shelter my 300,000 troops with my leader left outside the castle, left outside the shelter. The rest of my troops, as you can see, well, let's go through my troops here. I have 300,000 infantry T3 troops. I have 600,000 range troops, about 80,000 T3, and then 40 T2 and T1. The T2 and T1 are really there to do Lord's Cup, which is a relatively easy one to get the nice goodies. But that's essentially why the T2 and T1's there. You don't really need them there if you're not interested in Lord's Cup. It just makes it easier to do Lord's Cup. So essentially, I have around 1 million troops in my castle. And remember, in part 1 of my video, one of the advantages of being a wall trap is that it's very hard for you to be zeroed. And even if you're zeroed, you can recover very quickly. Because I only got 1 million troops, I can hide all those troops in my guildmates castles, in fake coalition, and in my shelter. So you can easily hide all your troops, no problem at all. So in my setup, I've chosen infantry as my highest level outside of my range, because what I want my opponent to do is hit me in full calf army march. The reason for that is that if they are sending cav, then my range will counter that and kill a lot more of the cav, as well as the traps on my wall as they're attacking. And the reason why I have 300,000 inf T3 troops is because that's what they're essentially going to see when they scout me. So they see there's 300 plus some inf plus some cav in the castle. What are they going to counter that with? Most likely they're not going to send another inf march at me or a range march at me, but they're going to send me a full cav march at me. And if they send a full cav march at me, I've got the natural counter to that through my ranged troops behind the wall. So that's a nice tip for you to keep in mind. So I hide my 300 troops in my shelter of my range, and then I basically pick a dark nest or enemy castle if I have a shield on to undo that shield, and then I do a fake rally for 8 hours with heroes, so you can maximize the number of troops you can hide in the coalition. Of course, don't pull your wall heroes in that fake rally, because they need to be there on your wall. So you can add 50,000 to 200,000, that's 250,000 you can hide troops, you can hide in the coalition rally. So if I do that, again, all inf, and what do you see when you scout me? You will see basically 40,000 T1, 40,000 T2, and most importantly, you will see 300,000 T3 inf there as the main point that I want to attract their attention. So this, if they read the scout report correctly, will mean that they were most likely going to send some sort of cav march, most likely a full cav march. And to respond to that, in terms of my trap build, the traps that I focused on is the cavs, the cav hitting traps. So the bending spikes and the hot irons. I also have some fortified towers and skyscrapers because sometimes they like to send inf along with their cav. So that's my defensive strategy in terms of the traps and their troops. So once they scout me, they will see most likely that I'm in farmed gear. So it looks like my shield has dropped, I'm offline. I have troop and leader left out, mainly inf. They're going to attack in cav. Now most people, as I mentioned earlier, will not see the wall HP that is there present on the scout report, and to make that even more less likely for them to see, what I do is to pop the production boosts for your stone, timber, ore, or gold. So you can do as many or as little, but basically I put a 24-hour ore boost on. So and if I'm sitting in farm gear or construction gear or some sort of farm boosting gear, farming boost gear, so for my ore or my gold boost to help with the boost, then because the boosts go above the wall HP stats in the scout report, he hides it away. And so hopefully what you're doing is trying to deceive your opponent so they don't see anything about your wool, that you are a wool trap. And the dead giveaway, of course, of wool trap is the wool HP level. And if you have, like me, 2 million, at the moment 1.4 out of 2 million wool HP, you want to hide that from your opponent as much as possible so they don't know your wool trap, and you will be a big surprise when they hit you and all they get is very minimal damage on your part, and you've eaten their march along with killing a lot of their T4 reds. So that's one element: sitting in farm gear, looking dead in your hive or alone in the map. Now, another strategy, so that's basically if you just don't want, you do as little as possible, that's what you can do. Another way you can do it is to put on fake army gear, your fake attack gear. So for example, I've got a fake set of gear here, basically next to really almost free to play type of gear, as you can see. So if you put this on, and it's done manually because I don't have the quick swap for this. So if an enemy scouts you, sees the report, and you are in army gear or in your fake fighting gear, they're really not going to concentrate unless they look specifically at the wool HP that you are a wool trap as well. They'll just think you are a standard normal T3 player with next to free to play gear, and they're going to be attracted to that and attack you. Now in this case, they may send a 375k march at you if they want to do as much damage as possible, but normally they'll just send a typical 250k march, and if they send full cav 250k and their castle and the research and their gear and stats are not all that great, then you're going to cap them easily once you switch to your wool trap gear in the last minute. So that's another strategy you can employ. The third strategy that I combine with my farming strategy is basically one where instead of being hunted or instead of being the prey, I'm going to be the hunter looking for my prey. So I'm going to look for a reasonably sized castle, say 500 million to 600 million, even 700 million max, that I think I will easily eat a march from them. And then I'll scan the map like I'm doing now and see if any of those castles are active. So even a 250 million, 150 million castle, if they are scouting and farming castles around the map, I want to see if they are scouting. So for example, if they are scouting this hive here, and what I want to do is take the opportunity after they finished, or after the scouts from their castle have arrived at this particular hive, what I'm going to do is going to relocate somewhere around the edges of the hive, maybe here or here where they haven't scouted. And when I think that they're starting to look at their scout reports from their scout of the hive, I'm going to relocate to the hive, and hopefully what happens is that they will do another round of scouting. They'll scout you, they'll see that you're in your farming gear, that you have troops out with leader, then they'll port over and attack you. If they don't hit you themselves, they may get a guildmate guildmate to come over, as I've experienced many times. They will put your chords in their guild chat. The guys from the guild chat will put next to you, scout you. So don't unshelter, don't undo your coalition too quickly until you're pretty sure that they're about to attack you. So after the scout, when they've relocated or when their guildmates relocated to you, unshelter, undo the coalition, and then last second change your gear, random away, bang. Hopefully you've capped him. Oh, here's a good example. You've got AXK Wildlife here. So he's scouting the hive. He's probably too close to the hive for that strategy to be effective. What you want to do is for this guy to be a bit further away, scouting that hive, and then you can pull along the edges. And so you can employ a similar strategy to that, and I found that to be very, very effective method of being the hunter instead of being the hunted. So that's the other strategy that I want to share with you. Those are the sort of tricks and tips that I want to share with you in this third part of the guide of being a wool trap. As I mentioned at the very beginning, when you're not using NT as a wool trap, you're going to get a lot of scouts, you're going to get a lot of action, so it's really fun if your wool is set up correctly. If you've got your troop comp set up correctly, you can get many hits in a day without your wool falling. All you have to do is heal the traps and rebuild the traps that you've lost from the attack. Now, the disadvantage, as I alluded to in part 1 of the guide, is of course it's very hard for a wool trap to get multiple hits. You might get 1 or 2, but then your traps and wool may be damaged too much for you to get other hits. So you won't be able to be involved in a gangbang situation like a troop trap, a typical troop trap would be able to do. In terms of the healing, at my level of development in terms of my castle, as you can see, if I've got T3 traps that need to be rebuilt, it'll take a day or 2 depending on the damage. So you need to speed that up if you want to trap again. And one thing that's kind of annoying as a wool trap is that once you're hit and you're smoking or you've been burnt, you cannot straight away heal your wool because you need to go through that period until that you stop smoking, your castle stops smoking, which is around 15, 16, 17 minutes. So you have to wait before you can heal your wool, if you wanted to heal your wool. Otherwise, if you don't want to heal your wool, just rebuild the traps, heal the wounded traps, and you're good to go once again. You'll see a video coming up where I've trapped a guy, I'm smoking, I get a scout straight away after I ran him, and I'm smoking, and straight away I get an attack. So as long as you can heal your wool, heal your traps, rebuild your traps very quickly. It takes typically 2 to 3 days of speed to do that. If they're not damaged too much, you're ready to go. So hopefully you've enjoyed my guide, part 1 and 2 and 3. Hopefully if you're already a wool trap, that gave you more information in how to make your wool trap more efficient and maximize the output in terms of the damage you can do to your opponent. If you think wools are crap, and hopefully this may have changed your mind. and maybe you're now interested in building your wool trap. I hope you enjoyed this series. I look forward to your comments. Tell me about your strategy. Tell me about what you think are the positives and negatives of being wool trap. Tell me about, ask me questions about all the nuts and bolts of how to build it. I'm happy to help you along your journey. This is Q Trap. Thanks for watching.